If you've got a question, the voices of resin are here. Oh, PlastChicks.
PlastChicks is an SPE sponsored podcast.
That's right, it is. Hello, how are you, Lynzie?
Hello, girl with the red hair and the brown eyes, as my oldest son refers to you.
They are hazel. My eyes are hazel, but
Not according to Henry.
Probably doesn't know that word yet.
You know, he'll get there. I'm sure with proper training, he will learn.
Good to see you.
Yes, it is very nice to see you on this lovely, at least snowy day in Erie. So I don't know if you guys have snow yet.
We had snow. I guess a little bit is still on the ground, but it's like close to freezing today.
Yeah. No, we're talking multiple inches. So
oh,
what a good time. What a day.
So I am Mercedes Landazuri.
And I'm Lynzie Nebel.
And with our powers combined, we are
PlastChicks,
the voices of resin.
What a lovely thing.
We've had this podcast for a few years now. What season is this for us? Is this our 4th or 5th season?
I think we're on the 6th season. But also maybe you're behind, maybe I'm ahead.
Where does the time go? I mean, some of them were pandemic years, so like that's all kind of
those blur together. They don't necessarily count, or they count double. I don't know.
They count double. Yeah, triple, quadruple. But you can listen to our podcast. It's released the first Friday of every month. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all the podcasty places.
Yep. And if you're interested in the video version where you can watch us be weird in person, you can catch us on the YouTube channel for 4SPE.
The number 4 and then SPE.
That's it. So today we have, I think this is a first. We actually have a trio of guests, and we're very excited about it. We have Gretchen Hoffer Farb, Charlotte Hoffer Canning, and Alex Hoffer, the co-CEOs of Hoffer Plastics, an industry leader and innovator in custom injection molding. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, and congratulations on season 6.
If this is season 6, thank you.
So Hoffer Plastics was now you're local to me here. You're in the Chicagoland area. And you were established in 1953 by your grandparents, Bob and Helen Hoffer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. So, so can you tell us a little bit about how and why they got started?
Our grandfather started his career in plastics, and he wanted to start his own company. So he came to Elgin, where my grandmother grew up, and found some land, found a building, and started our business. And here we are. 70 years later, we just celebrated our 70th anniversary.
What a good time. And, obviously I am very biased towards injection molding.
My
any
other type of mold.
Other processes, why bother? So I'm really excited.
She forgets extrusion all the time. She forgets it.
I don't forget.
Well,
I specifically.
You act like you do.
For good reason. Injection molding is the bestest molding. I will take no other information. So when your grandpa, was starting out, your grandparents were creating this company, did they have a vision in mind for what kind of injection molding? I mean, going on 71 years, at the time at the forefront of injection molding.
He was a pioneer. I think it stemmed from his love of just plastic and solving customer issues. And
my kind of guy.
He started an injection molding company, and that seems to be where we've stayed. That's our sweet spot. So we've stayed an injection molding company for 70 years, serving our customers through multiple different industries and doing it very successfully.
And I'm totally off our agenda now per the traditional way of going. But, starting at the beginning, you really have to evolve over a lot of, different, you're talking different types of presses, you're talking different types of materials, different types of even industry choices coming to injection molding. How do you handle that kind of, incoming wave of new chaos, because that's not just saying like, okay, there's a new iteration of the iPhone, let's adjust and move accordingly. That's saying we have hydraulic knob presses. Now we are, you know, running all electrics. Like, how do you handle that like serious level of change in a company that big?
I think, and I can speak to the 20 years I've been here, and you've watched our employees grow and learn and evolve. We are much further along in our press technology, and you're right, we are seeing electric presses, all different types of technology. We're putting in AMR systems and, you know, material handling system all throughout our plant to revolutionize how we handle our product. I can speak even more so on the resin side. We run 100 different raw materials of different kinds. So the complexity in which we run here and the diversity of materials we run is complex, but we adapt and we learn how to do each new one and learn the new requirements. And I think our team has done a phenomenal job of learning and adapting to what the next industry, the next customer brings to the table and challenges us with.
Now, Gretchen, you mentioned you've been at Hoffer for 20 years. I think, Charlotte, you've been there for almost 18 years now. Is that right? And Alex, about 15 and a half?
That's correct.
And I know that at least two of you started your careers with different companies. Gretchen, you were with American Express, and Charlotte, I think PepsiCo, for 7 and 5 years respectively. What was that planned? Did you want to get experience with a different company before moving back to the family company? Had you originally thought, I never want to work for the family company, I want to do something totally different? What drew you back to Hoffer, besides the name?
I'll start. I graduated college and took my CPA exam. So American Express Tax and Business Services purchased our public accounting firm at the time. And I worked 7.5 years in public accounting on the audit and tax side of the business, in the business world. When I left as an intern at Hoffer Plastics in the pre-college years, I was like, I'm not going to work here until I've gone somewhere else. So it was, I think for me, it was, you know, college graduate, single, and I moved to Chicago and wanted to go explore different, you know, explore something different and try a new career. And why I came here is I was settling down. My husband and I were about to get married, and I decided if I was going to make a change, this was a good time. And I was ready to be a leader who could have influence and make decisions for employees or for a business that would be impactful. And that was one of the reasons why I stepped out of the, you know, accounting, audit, and tax world and decided to come into the private sector and do something different.
Yeah, and for myself, similar to Gretchen, graduated from Purdue University, the School of Management with a marketing minor, and initially went to the sales training program from Northwestern Mutual, but was only there for a brief amount of time. Figured out very quickly that it was definitely not going to be my career path to sell insurance. But long story short, ended up moving out to the East Coast to New York with my fiance, who was born and raised in New York, and had the opportunity to get my foot in the door at PepsiCo, and actually worked at the Pepsi-Lipton partnership, which is a JV between Unilever and PepsiCo. So got experience really between both large consumer packaging companies, which was super exciting, especially, you know, being young and out of college, to learn a lot about marketing and sales, and really would fill the sales position in the Northeast, and then was transferred back to Chicago to cover the Midwest region for the Pepsi-Lipton partnership. And about 6 years in, got a call from my sister saying, you know, we're going to have a sales position open. Would you consider it, you know, at this point coming back? And I definitely had a good taste of corporate USA, and it was just felt like the right time to make the investment to the family company to come back and start putting time and passion and energy into what our grandfather started.
And clearly you moved back to the Superior time zone. Lynzie is in East Coast time zone.
Central time zone is the worst.
No, it always trips us up when we're planning these. We've had to get very deliberate in how we phrase what time.
Yes.
But, yeah.
And Alex, you know, you got your Master's of Education at DePaul prior to joining Hoffer. So were you initially planning a totally different path, or?
Yeah, so I was the typical third child. I was the person that wanted to do everything from be a sports broadcaster to I actually thought about becoming a preacher at some point, going into ministry. Then I went to grad school. In between all that time, I did an internship with the Boys and Girls Club, and I also spent 3 summers at Hoffer Plastics and left the last day of the 3rd summer saying I was never going to work. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so it was, it was formative from the standpoint of some of the things that I was doing were necessary things, but I didn't see the big picture. I was typical 18 to 22-year-old at the time and didn't see the big picture of working at Hoffer Plastics. And so I had a really, really good experience getting a master's degree in education, and thought for a season of my life I was going to pursue being a history teacher, being a coach. I'm really into sports and kind of going down that track. Was able to meet my wife when I was living down in the city, similar to Gretchen. I think typical Chicagoan, had that desire to live down in the city, go to grad school there, and kind of had a plan for my life that I guess you could say God had a different plan for my life, because there was just a season where that history thing didn't really work out. Turns out in the state of Illinois that being an expensive person on the job scale from the standpoint of having a master's degree and not having any experience isn't necessarily a good thing. And so I actually was looking to get into sales, and Charlotte had set me up with an opportunity to get into sales through a connection she had. And that was the time when my dad kind of approached me. I was actually personal training my dad at the time, and which is kind of a funny story, on a side note. And he said to me during the training session, like, you're going to sell, why wouldn't you come sell at Hoffer Plastics? And so in May of 2008, I came on board.
And so William Hoffer is your dad, is that correct? And he's so he's the current chairman of the board and the former CEO. Got it. So
Yes.
So over the years, after you guys all came back to Hoffer and you worked your way up through the ranks, now you became co-CEOs in June of 2023. What's it like? What's it like being co-CEOs with your family, with G3, I guess, the 3rd generation, right?
And having siblings of my own, how?
Well, we've been, our titles, you're correct, our titles changed this year to co-CEOs, but the 3 of us have been leading the company since January of 2020, which was an awesome time, as you can imagine.
Very easy. Glad for you.
Super easy transition into day-to-day management of this company. So I think, we spent, Alex, Gretchen, and I have, obviously knowing as family members that we're going to be running this company, we have spent many years planning and working through, like, what does co-leadership look like? So we've been very intentional about spending time and working through, okay, what happens when we don't come to an agreement on X? What happens in this circumstance? And really working through, how is this model going to be efficient and growing and creating successful business for Hoffer Plastics for, the next however many decades we're all here. So it was a lot of upfront planning, but it was also, we all have different sweet spots and different things, different personality and passions that really help drive and create a successful co-leadership structure. So I'm the extrovert and love to be out with people, love to be talking, hence the HR, handling and managing HR was kind of the right fit for myself. Also super love marketing, PR. So that's, always been kind of the area that I have spent my time and passion around. Alex, sales and operations focus. Gretchen, you heard her talk about her CPA, finance, supply chain, resin strategies, all of that. I'll let both of them, add to that, but all of that creates a lot of clarity and helps with success in the co-leadership structure.
Yeah, one of my epiphanies early on in this process was that, my strong belief is that leadership is the process of doing things with and through other people. And with that definition of leadership, there's no other kind of leadership than shared leadership, because you're always sharing influence. You're always doing things with and through other people. And so, there was a time in my life where I thought, being the CEO myself was something that I might aspire to. And I think there was a season when I did aspire to that. But the more I thought and prayed about it, the more I realized that really any CEO that's worth their weight is going to be sharing influence. They need a team. And so what we did is just formalize that team, and then work through, this decision-making process that Charlotte alluded to. The cool story for us is that, riding through COVID up until present day, we really haven't had a, issue that we haven't come to consensus on. And I would add quickly, because, we've done the hard work that she mentioned earlier, which includes meeting with the facilitator to talk through issues quarterly and, do some of the things that, if we weren't co-CEOs in a business, we probably wouldn't do as siblings.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you mentioned the facilitator, if I'm an only child, but I've lived with a lot of my cousins, and I feel like if I were in such a position with my cousins who are closest things that I have to siblings, we would definitely need like a family counseling session. Like,
Oh, we would need, the Collard family would need a lot.
It's very impressive. Yeah.
And as of recently, you've added a VP of operations to kind of round out, some of that leadership. Can you kind of tell us about that?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in here. One of our highlights of this past year has been this hire. And I think it highlights something that we feel sort of passionate about at Hoffer Plastics. Our core values are family, integrity, service, and trust. And so, really what they mean is that we want to treat everybody on our team like they're part of the family. And so it's a pretty unique culture. And I think we can speak to that a little bit later in the interview. And then integrity, we want to be the same people behind closed doors that we are in public. And we want our team members to know that they're always to do the right thing. Service to us is, we want to go the extra mile for the customer, and we're willing to be even punished to a certain extent for that value in the marketplace, because we just want to be that company that serves the customers even if it hurts. And then finally, we want to have the type of culture where we can just trust people. We believe that you got to earn trust over time, but initially trust is given on that first day, and you're continuing to earn it day after day. So that longer explanation aside, this process for us was really important to make sure that we got the right individual. And so one of the things that we believe in is that the ideal team player, to quote Patrick Lencioni, is humble, hungry, and smart. And so this process for us, in terms of finding that person, was one in which we asked a lot of poignant questions around culture, which, quite honestly, whether it's the VP of Ops or somebody who's just going to work on a production line, we treat them the same at Hoffer Plastics, so they're part of the family. And so, it was very important for us that we could find the right individual. And we did. A guy by the name of Jeff Klabundy. He's been here since the middle of 23. And it's, you got the right person when they make your job in your life easier. And that's what Jeff's done for the three of us.
Yeah, company culture is so huge, and knowing that this company was born out of your grandfather, who came from corporate manufacturing. Two of you had experience in the corporate world as well, where culture can be really different from a family company. And I have to say, having worked with you guys in the past, I've been really, really impressed by the company culture at Hoffer. And I have often, I hope it's okay that I bring this up, to people on the outside too, that I remember being in a meeting with you, Gretchen, and I was with a supplier, and I was so impressed. You were leading up the supply chain, and you had brought in 2 production operators, who typically, those titles I'm not usually in meetings with, and it was so valuable for me to be able to talk with those two and hear their concerns and wants and needs, so valuable to me as a supplier to understand how to better meet your needs as a customer. Do your employees value it the same way? Do they see that difference? Do they feel it?
I can speak to the meeting. I remember the meeting really well because we were trying to bring a new process to the production floor with the supplier for a colorant. And why I brought those gentlemen in the meeting was because they're the ones actually doing the work. And so I think they really appreciated that. And we still talk about that because I can make decisions up front, but never understand the impact to our production team or to the individuals on the floor. And I just don't believe that that's what our values are. Our values is to bring everyone together and to really work together to solve the problem for the customer. And so ultimately we need to be better for the customer. And by doing that, we introduce new technology. So we're introducing a new technology, bringing the people who are going to actually do the work to the table to make the decision is, part of our values, part of our culture. Like, give us your feedback, tell me, I don't even know. I don't operate that equipment. I don't know the trouble. I've heard, but I don't personally know. And so I think it helps me as a leader to make better decisions as well, because I could make a decision that's bad for the company by not having them in the room with me. And so working together, collaborating, and really solving the problem for the customer is ultimately, the goal. And working with vendors and hearing new technology, that's all about where we want to go in the future, is to be implementing new technology, but doing it at a pace we do it all together.
I think that's really smart. That also provides insight, up and down the chain of like what's the capability of this supplier. Now your operators are seeing that, and they know you're not just, oh, I bet they picked a color because it looks stupid,
or because it looks better for the bottom line too, right?
Right. Now
we had that conversation. I mean, I could make that decision just based on numbers for the bottom line, but does that really make sense for the people on the floor? Does it make their job harder? What makes sense? And that's what we were collaborating about that day, is what's the total picture?
Yeah. And I think sometimes those decisions are being made with those considerations, but it's not being communicated, or it's not seen, up or down. And I think people can get frustrated and kind of, lose their injection molding sparkle, if you will. And, I think that's really great that you were able to do that. And I know Mercedes told me the story, I think before we even talked about having you guys on the podcast.
Yeah, it had such
that's how big it was for her.
it was really impactful. And it's like, and I want to conduct, I was taught by one of my mentors, I mean, this is only tangentially related. Welcome to the podcast, but but that you always want to bring people with you. Like, to be a leader, you always have to bring people with you. And it's so key. It gives them, I mean, it's just so much better for information exchange, for making everyone feel valued as well, and for learning on everyone's part. So thank you again for that. I think that is that's a model that we should be considering more.
And obviously that's paying off, because you guys are just collecting all the awards hardware. You guys have won Plastics News Processor of the Year, Family Business of the Year, Sustained Excellence Award, and the Illinois Governor's Sustainability Award, which that is a long title, but I think that means it's extra big award. So it's great to see plastics companies, especially, being awarded sustainability awards, because I think, people assume we're just constantly fighting trees or turtles or something like that. And,
states like Illinois.
What? Especially
like Illinois.
Fighting so many turtles. So can you guys talk about the sustainability award, what went into it, and, how you achieved it?
Well, the Sustained Excellence Award, I'll talk against that first. I mean, that was more recent. That was all about financial excellence, innovation, and key people or persons who have been with the company. 3 areas of which we continue to be firmly focused on. in terms of financial excellence, our grandfather was, set this company up for success, being a steward of the finances of this company and being, very passionate about not carrying debt. So we're a debt-free company and very proud of that. But at the same time, work very hard to be corporately responsible. In terms of innovation, we've talked a little bit already about the Trusty Lock product line, our proprietary products and driving innovation. That goes all the way through the technology in our company, new presses, new automation projects going on, and then key people or persons. Well, that comes back, to the family and our involvement for 70 years. So, having third generation family members now running the company, for sure talks about sustained excellence. So not that, we've only been in charge for a few years, but G2 and first generation for sure have done heavy lifting and have gotten us to where we are today without question. In terms of sustainability award, and all of this, while leadership sits firmly with the Hoffer family, none of this is possible without our team. We're foundational, but it is our team that, shows up day to day, and they're the ones helping us win these awards. There's no question. So it's our people who are doing the heavy lifting of making sure that, we have a proficient recycling program, put into place that was introduced really right when Gretchen started. And if I'm correct, I believe it was 2007, but whether it's helping our customers decades ago with more recyclable options for their end use products, or whether it's internally in this company, we have, a cogeneration power system that, not only has helped our local community with ensuring that we don't have brownouts, blackouts, things like that when the weather is inclement, but it's also helping nationally to pull ourselves off the grid when needed for the power companies to be able to sustain power nationally. So, and that all of it at the root of it, it comes back to the DNA that our grandfather set foot for being a good corporate neighbor and really making sure that we are doing everything that we can. So whether it's being super vigilant about the power, whether it's being super vigilant about, the water in this building and making sure that, we recapture, reuse, and do whatever we need to have clean water. That was a priority for a long time. It was looking at lighting to make sure that we, saved on lighting. And obviously landfill diversion is a huge part of that as well now. And always has been for many, many years, as well as reducing carbon emission. So all of these things, were obviously, factors in our application that drove towards the Governor's Sustainability Award.
And I love to see that, the other components besides, just, hey, we scrap our runners and we recycle them. I think sometimes when there's, from what little I feel like the public knows about plastics companies, it's just, how are you handling the plastic? How are you recycling the plastic? And there's so much more that goes into it, with just operating a company, a manufacturing facility that is, consuming water, consuming power, all that. And, being able to, like you said, pull yourself off the grid if you need to, and managing the water, like the amount of water that goes into injection molding, I think is, that would be a fun fact for those not in the know.
Absolutely.
So it's pretty clear, just from talking with you briefly, even visiting your company's website, we're pretty clear, I think, to people in the industry that Hoffer isn't your average injection molder, right? And you'd mentioned, you're also focused on innovation. You have that products like the Trusty Lock line, which is that's the closure for flexibles. Is that correct? So how do you approach innovation at Hoffer?
Yeah, that's the age-old question, isn't it? When we think about innovation, really goes back to Grandpa. I think Grandpa was very passionate about two things, really. I've heard the two messages over and over, and if I could sum it up, it's get your butt to see the customer and get your butt out on the floor to see the internal customer. It's all about seeing the people. And the three of us have embraced that. And really innovation to me starts with getting your butt to see the customer and getting your butt to see the people on the floor, because innovation is twofold. It's how do we help our external customer win more business? How do we make their lives better? How do we help the end consumer? Because a lot of the products that we manufacture at Hoffer Plastics, go somewhere else to get manufactured and then end up from there going to some, consumer. So how do we solve for that? And thinking, not necessarily from our own vantage point, but from their vantage point, that's really important. But I think the other side of this equation that a lot of leaders forget is we need to be the type of people that are on the floor, on our own floor, and not, looking at things from the front office perspective, but rather, how could we make the lives of those on the production floor better? Gretchen mentioned earlier, AMRs, autonomous mobile robots. So we have a project going on right now where we're implementing these AMRs, and that's all around making people's lives on the floor better. Getting rid of those repetitive tasks of either making boxes, better lifting boxes, thinking about the safety of that. Just, I don't want to be the guy that's lifting, 5 pound, 10 pound boxes every, every half hour or so. So why would I want people on the floor doing that, especially, overnight or later, when they're tired, that sort of thing. So that's just one small example. So I think, for the listeners, I think it's really important that you start in mind of the customer, and that can be both internally or externally. And so starting with that has really benefited us in terms of innovation.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's so many. I just keep going back to the fact that I feel like you guys have cycled through so many waves of injection molding, and I could make this podcast 55 more minutes just on just on that. So I apologize. I'm all over the place today. I think, saying like stuff about how it starts with, your people on the floor and making sure that they're being able to do their best job. And then I think that like ties into what, Mercedes, you were saying about Gretchen before, with bringing the operators into a meeting. Like, how many times have you heard, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I loved that, this has a point, the Hot Cheetos documentary on Hulu, how it was the guy on the floor who just loved Cheetos and wanted to do something that his family would eat and enjoy. And like, that's, where this huge spin-off of an entire business came from. And I really appreciate seeing that thought put back into a company that can seem so straightforward as an injection molding company. It gets me really jazzed up, probably more than it should, but it does.
Well, I think one thing I'd add is that, one of the side benefits of being co-CEOs is that instead of 2 years, we have 6, meaning, my sisters are walking on the floor when I'm not. I'm walking on the floor when they're not. And so there is more exposure. Gretchen can be in a supply chain meeting, Charlotte can be in an HR meeting, and I could be in Europe visiting a trusty lot customer all at the same time. So I think that has benefited us. And then also, I think the other thing that's benefited the 3 of us is that, let's call out, the elephant in the room. A lot of companies don't have co-CEOs because it takes a certain level of humility. And the last thing I would want to say on this podcast is, oh, we're humble people, because that automatically means that we're not. But
we'll say it for you.
Yeah, we're doing this, and we're finding a way to, learn and continue to get better as co-CEOs. But the point I was trying to make here is that part of the way that we're doing that is we have very, people that are smarter than us coming in to speak to us, whether it's industry insiders, going to a plastics industry association event, going to a MAP event. My sisters are in Vistage. I'm in, I go to the a benchmarking group myself. So we're seeking that outside help. And I think, Lynzie, that's that helps us along the way of kind of anticipating what's coming down the pipeline, and anticipating how to pivot the business for the future.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Like, I would call you guys humble, I'll say it for you. So that way you don't have to write, but
Yeah, humble, okay.
yeah, humble. It's cemented, it's PlastChicks approved. We can go on with this. But no, truly, I mean, I can think to a lot of people in leadership I have met over the years, and I don't know how many would equally accept input from other people in that position. There's typically one person saying, I have the final say, and that can lead to a lot of, toxicity in jobs and companies. And when you were saying, the values, the family, integrity, service, and trust, there are companies that will tell you, we're family, and it's in the we are just going to burn you out kind of way. But I think when you have all these other, you guys are actually literally walking the walk and, proving that, look at, we are family actually, and we can also make this family without taking it to that point of using it as a weapon. You guys are very much using it to a strength. And I really love to see that. It is a rarity.
I got a phone call last week from one of our employees, and he's had crisis in his family. And we had just told him to stay home. And he goes, I just want you to know that I know you say family is part of your values, but you actually live it. And that really means a lot to the employees. And that's when you know that what you say and what you do really add up together, right?
Well, and to add to that too, I mean, we have multiple long-term employees that are multi-generational here. And our longest tenured employee, who's a female, 53 years has been with us. So it's, it's a lot of giving back to us for us, hopefully providing a really safe, really positive work environment, and a work environment where they know that leadership really cares.
Yeah, 53 years as a woman in plastics. That might be kind of record.
I was gonna say she needs an award or something.
Shout out to Lynzie. We gotta have her on her name.
So now you have, I believe, over 350 employees. Is that correct?
Just about, yes.
So I assume that you want to keep carrying on this tradition for future generations. Will there be a G4? And what does the future?
And can we call them out now?
Are they doing internships now and saying, I'm never coming back here?
Those are the ones you want to look at.
We're gonna start them early. Yeah, there's actually 9 G4 members, if I'm doing the math correct in my head really quick. And yeah, that's the goal. I mean, the goal that Alex, Gretchen, and I are working on is, family stewardship to get this company to G4. So doing the hard work now to make sure that, the family governance is set up, and that all the, pieces are in place so that we can successfully transition this business. And in the hopes that someone will step up and be interested. But I think with 9 of them, there's a good chance.
Yeah, I was going to add, back to Jeff, who was our VP of Ops. He walked into my office a couple months ago and said, hey, what if we had G4 start coming to the plant next year? What if I developed a little bit of a curriculum for them? And so I have 3 kids that are 12, 10, and 7. And so, 2 boys and a girl. And I said, they're probably at that stage where they'd be interested. And so
never too early for an injection molding machine.
What's that?
It's never too early for an injection molding machine.
No. Pictures of baby Henry, of Lindsay's firstborn, like he was probably 6 months at the time, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
And an injection molder in between 2 injection molders.
So that was an indicator to me, though, because any good leader is always thinking about succession, and the Hoffer family's just a small part of the succession, but it's definitely part of it for us. And so Jeff's had the same conversation with Gretchen and Charlotte, and we're going to be implementing that in 2024. So it'll be a lot of fun having some youth in the building.
I think that's awesome. I love hearing about. I mean, even if they weren't, obviously not all 9 are gonna I think 9 CEOs might be too many. I personally, I've never been a CEO, so I can't speak on that, but 9 might be too many.
9 Supreme Court justices, they disagree all the time.
And listen, that's going flawlessly. You know, so even if, you know, however many 2/3 of them decide not to be involved, they still have that exposure to plastics in a non-negative way and can, you know, use that to influence and, you know, create trust in this industry that sometimes is so sorely lacking that. And if any of them can TikTok, tell them we need more plastic TikToks. We talk about it all the time.
Yes, we do. 100% agree, Lindsay. We need many more influencers on TikTok that are pro plastic.
Yes, Mercedes and I have tried, but we are too tired.
Too many other things.
Too tired. So, well, you know, guys, it has been really great to have you on here. I think we're just about out of time right now. I love seeing, you know, even in this this virtual forum, I was a little nervous that, you know, you have in a big group, sometimes people are talking over each other. You can see that you guys all have that like mutual respect for each other, and it just really comes across even in a Zoom call. So we really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for being a part of our podcast today.
Thank you so much for having us. We greatly appreciate it.
And are there any upcoming trade shows or events where people might be able to meet you in person?
Our team will be at MD&M in early 2024. We are always at Global Pouch Forum, which is, I believe, in June of next year, June 2024. Alex, what am I missing?
Well, I'll be at the Plastics Industry Association meetings. I believe there's one in March, and then there'll be one in the fall. Of course, the MAP benchmarking, which gets into the fall of next year, and then Pack Expo as well. We'll have a presence there. So those are the big hitters. But you can find.
Alex, you'll be at NPE too.
That is correct. I'll be at NPE.
Be there.
Be there. We'll see you there. And we should also give Alex, you one last note. I want to give a shout out to your blog. Alex also was named and by Plastics News as one of the social media accounts to follow. He posts great content. I would start with LinkedIn, but he has a fantastic blog where he also talks about some of his leadership lessons that he's learned. AlexHoffer.me. So check that out if you're interested in leadership.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.